Thank you, Shreya. Good day, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Engtoft Larsen, and I am Denmark's tech ambassador. I represent the government of Denmark to the global tech industry with a mandate covering the entire world on all matters of technology. First of all, thank you so much, nasscom, for the invitation to speak here today. I regret that I can't be with you in person, but I am thrilled to have the opportunity to address the 31st edition of the Technology and Leadership Forum either way. I am delighted to see nasscom focus on the role of technology in our democratic institutions and democracy at large. Today, I would like to use my time to answer a question that is not only extremely close to my heart as tech ambassador, but one that may come to define our collective future. Is technology a threat to democracy? In order to answer that question, we need to rewind the clock a little bit to a time when money was still a physical paper and dating happened in bars. Not too long ago, software engineers were not much more than hackers in a garage. They were passionate individuals who would meet up in their local communities to show up their latest makeshift projects and experiment with whatever pieces of technology they could get their hands on. These people, they didn't possess any noteworthy social status, and they certainly didn't exercise meaningful political power, because why would they? But over the past 30 years, these programmers and engineers, they have challenged the status quo. The garages that they used to meet in, they have become part of Silicon Valley's folklore. And a handful of these people are now considered some of the most greatest visionaries of the planet. Gordon Moore, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, just to name a few. And through impressive feats of engineering, these people and the companies that they have built, they have disrupted entire industries, and with them, our societies. Fast forward to today, and technology is with us from the very moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. And new technologies has changed the way that we communicate, how we work, how we socialize and interact, and all with an incredible speed. And even more impressively, technology has changed how societies are governed, how markets function, how democracy is exercised, and even how geopolitical waters that each nation is navigating across. It has changed how we navigate those interests and how the values are shared. The thing about technology is that if it is developed and deployed safely and democratically, technology can help us solve some of the biggest challenges of our time. Climate change, better access to healthcare, education across the world, and so much more. New breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, in biotech, and quantum computing allow us to peek into a future where technology gives us so much more needed solutions to the complex problems that we face as species and as the planet. That is a promise of innovation. And we must work very hard towards making that a reality if technology is to be a force for good. One only needs to look at the pandemic, which in and of itself was a catalyst for a massive digital leap in all societies across the world, to see how digital tools allowed workplaces, schools, even health services to continue to operate in a time of great uncertainty. But just as the pandemic showed us the promise of technology, it also revealed exactly how much we depend on it in our daily lives, for better or for worse. This past fall, I had the wonderful pleasure of visiting India for the first time as tech ambassador. During my trip, I got a brief but inspirational glimpse into the sprawling technological ecosystem, from New Delhi to Bangalore and beyond, an epicenter of technology, and today one that even rivals one found here on the West Coast in the United States where I'm based. And that is no small achievement. And I recall how during one particular meeting, someone asked a thought-provoking question. They asked me, Meta, Netflix, the big tech companies that are where you are based, they have amazing engineers, probably some of the best in the world. They have impressive revenues, but do they really make the world a better place? Well, I'm pretty sure that that question was rhetorical. It is an important question to ask, and maybe one that we don't ask often enough. Do we push digitization and the creation of new technologies only for commercial profit, or because we believe in its potential for society as a whole, both for markets, both for business opportunities, but also for larger societal purposes. For a long time, the mantra of Silicon Valley was to move fast and break things. That means approaching work and innovation with an emphasis on speed and experimentation. And on paper, that is a wonderful thing, until the very moment it isn't. Because while the tech industry's fixation on optimization, efficiency has been a driving force behind countless technological development and advancements, some of them in your pockets right now, it can also come at a cost. And sometimes that cost is obvious, but too often it isn't obvious until it's too late. Perhaps this is the most apparent in dual-use technologies. That's inventions that have both a civilian but also a military application side. Take facial recognition. The facial recognition software as an example, it can be used to unlock your smartphone. It is smart to have in a busy day, but it can also be used to track peaceful protesters or to weaponize drones, even if that wasn't the original purpose by the ones who invented facial recognition. Digital surveillance techniques are unfortunately also used to impose social control. It can oppress marginalized groups, and it can stifle legitimate opposition. And civic space is shrinking both online and offline. Democracy activists, human rights defenders, and protest movements all over the world are under digital attack, while at the same time enabled by using these marvelous digital technologies. We've seen countless examples how the internet can be weaponized to launch disinformation campaigns, how it can meddle with democratic elections, and sow division and weaken alliances. We've also seen how social media's algorithms can fuel polarization. They can spread misinformation and create echo chambers, eroding trust in democratic institutions and practices. To avoid misuse and abuse, we need to ensure that the technological development happens securely and in accordance with the principles that we hold dear. Sometimes that might mean doing things slightly more inefficiently, even if it means that we don't boost screen time or increase click-through rates. In the 21st century, new players have stepped up onto the global stage. In just a few years, tech companies such as Google, Meta, Amazon, Tencent, ByteDance, they have amassed a size and influence that surpasses that of many countries. They have unprecedented influence on the development of society and the daily lives of ordinary people. And through corporate decision-making, how they develop their digital tools and how these tools are available to citizens and countries often make them a de facto geopolitical and foreign political actor. In short, the unprecedented growth of the tech sector has allowed a handful of companies to turn market power into political power, and at times maybe even tipping the balances of power on a global scale. The war in Ukraine was one such example. It really forced the big tech giants, maybe not to choose a side, but at least to make decisions on geopolitical conflicts. Since the beginning of the war, Ukraine's Minister of Digital Transformation has used Twitter to communicate directly with tech CEOs and urge them to exit the Russian market. Some tech companies, they had offered Ukraine much needed support on cyber, on cloud infrastructure, or simply supporting them through the war. In essence, Silicon Valley has digitally sanctioned Russia, much like a nation states who implemented financial sanctions. My bet is that the role as foreign political players for tech companies will only increase. Private tech companies are operating overwhelming parts of our critical digital infrastructure. They are responsible for an increasing share of research into new technologies. These rapid and wide-ranging development has thrown into question many tenets of existing international order. The result is that democratic governments, parliaments, and the people that we represent have lost some of their ability to choose the direction for their societies. That doesn't have to be that way, because technology can be an amazing force for good. Just as we've seen that it can shrink in civic space, it can also expand from it. Just as it can be used to oppress populations, it can also help mobilize people around the world fighting for human rights, fighting for democracy. It can connect us. It can allow us to speak to people that we haven't previously been connected to. It can help us understand new perspectives on the world. And so all of these reasons is why Denmark appointed a tech ambassador back in 2017. For the past 6 years, we have recognized that in order to really help shape this technological revolution and make sure that the technologies that we hold dear in our society and that are so much part of who we are and that are so important for our growth, our societies, our markets, our opportunities, we need to engage with the tech industry. And that's in short the mandate of Denmark's tech diplomacy. It is to work with the tech companies to represent the Danish government. And most importantly, to create a trusted conversation where we can work together on issues that are dear to our heart. We have 4 roles in the tech diplomacy. 1, we're an envoy. We represent the Danish government directly with the companies in a constructive, at times a critical, but always a very trustworthy and trusted manner. We're an advisor. We take knowledge around technological development from all over and bring it back to Danish policymakers and Danish society, thinking about how do we digitize in the best way, where we harness the opportunities and the promises of technologies while avoiding the risk. We're a convener. We believe that building bridges is incredibly important in this space. We cannot solve these problems governments alone, tech sector alone, or civil society. We need to work collaboratively, and we need to do so in partnership. And finally, we're a communicator. We believe that these issues shouldn't just be left to closed door meetings, but have it in conversations such as the one you have today. Denmark's strategy focuses on 3 pillars within this space. We focus on responsibility, how to make sure that tech companies know what is their societal responsibility, how to live up to it, and how do we collectively think about creating more responsible digital technologies that are solving the big issues of our time. The second pillar is around democracy. And so very much to the theme of today. How do we ensure that technology supports and promotes democracy rather than undermining it? Because in a world where so much of our democratic dialogue is going online, where our elections are so dependent on our critical digital infrastructure, and where we as citizens and democracies, most of our lives are partly digital, we need to ensure that the technologies we're developing, they are increasing transparency, accountability, responsibility, and most importantly, mutual understanding of who we are as a collective. And finally, the third pillar of our strategy is on security. We've seen how technologies is both advancing, but also at times challenging the existing security political architecture we have. And that requires us to work between cybersecurity companies, big tech companies whose technologies can be a supporter of our national security and our collective security, and do so together. Denmark has undertaken this work in technological diplomacy because it is urgent. We need nations across the globe to take part in securing a free, safe, and democratic technological future. Because whether we like it or not, governments need to understand that technology will be a key component in all parts of foreign affairs and politics. And that is why we need to take action today in order to safeguard and expand our human rights and democratic values. Denmark have achieved many tangible outcomes as a result of this work. I'd like to focus on a recent one today. This is our Tech for Democracy initiative. Against the current political backdrop, it is important to highlight that digital technologies can foster and widen democratic and inclusive societies. Digital technologies, they can bring people closer together, and they can bring us closer to the decisions that influence our lives. Digital solutions can promote human rights. They can enhance people's engagement and make democratic institutions even stronger, more responsible, and more accountable. And at the same time, as I just mentioned, digital technologies can also pose a severe threat to democracies globally and our democratic practices. This calls for joint action, and we must find ways to make technology work for democracy, not against it. We believe that to do so, we need governments back in the driver's seat of technological development. Because in a time where geopolitical competition is increasing, the development, the application, and the regulation of new technology will be decisive in shaping the future. It is crucial that defenders of democratic values and human rights, that we stand together to harness the potential of digital technologies. Because these challenges are not going to go away anytime soon. On the contrary, we can expect them to grow as technologies become more and more sophisticated and accessible to all. That's the reason for Denmark's Tech for Democracy initiative. With it, we gathered more than 200 partners across the biggest tech companies, more than 40 countries, and civil society representatives and activists from all over the world. These 200 partners, they have all signed the Copenhagen Tech for Democracy Pledge, which is focusing on how do we support technology in a democratic era, and how do we make sure that the democracies and the democratic values that we fought so hard for in the 20th century will also be key characteristics of the 21st century. Secondly, the Tech for Democracy initiative is focused on action. With that, we have more than 15 action coalitions. These are public-private collaborations where tech industry, civil society, and governments sit together around a table and do the hard work of thinking, how do we actually move the needle on issues such as meaningful transparency into algorithms? How do we protect women and girls online? How do we work much more with enhancing children's and youth's voice when it comes to new technologies? And a whole suite of other action coalitions focused on meaningfully working together to address issues of our time. And the third pillar of this initiative is to also bring money to the table and say, we know that so many activists around the world, they are using digital technologies, and they are showing the real promise behind these technologies in changing the faith for more democracies. To do so, we need to support them. And that's why we're setting up a new fund to support human rights and democracy defenders around the world harnessing digital technologies. As I round up, I would like to focus on three things. First of all, as we go back to the question of whether technology is a threat to democracy, it is important to say it isn't inherently so, because technology is not neutral. It comes with values tied to it. And we can decide to make democratic values that are close to our heart part of the design of technology, the dissemination, the development, the application, how we regulate them, and how we want them to create more meaningful, better, and democratic lives and societies. To do so, we first of all need to recognize that it is up to us, regulators, technology users, tech developers, to come in a collective movement working with technology that we believe can support democracy. Secondly, I believe we all need a little bit more technological intuition. That doesn't mean we all have to be software engineers, but it means that we all need to have a basic understanding and appreciation of technologies in order to be able to critically assess when and how to use them, in order to understand when do I see disinformation or fake news and engaging online. And we need technological intuition to appreciate how technology is transforming our societies and our lives and ensure that it does so for the better. And the third point I want to make is that collaboration and alliances in this space is absolutely crucial. This cannot be only left up to the tech companies to live up to, because frankly, the responsibility is too big and the task is too large. Also, governments need to be in the driver's seat for this, but we can't do it alone. It requires deep collaboration with the tech sector, with civil society, with citizens and academia, if we are to do so. I believe that we already now see from India very important steps in this area. I recently, when visited, we're focusing a lot on the new Technology and Trade Council between the EU and India. And I believe that is taking great steps towards strengthening strategic engagement on trade and technology between these two regions, and particularly in focusing on how to preserve what are strong shared values between India and the EU. And it also means that we need to continuously work multilaterally, not only between the EU and India, but with partners all over the world. And when visiting India, and not least talking to nasscom, I was delighted to see the global and international engagement you have on this front too. So in short, we must recode our future and we must rise to the challenge, because we cannot let the answer to the question, is technology a threat to democracy, left for the future. This is one that we will have to answer today. I strongly believe that technology can be a force for good. I believe technology is already showing us how much good it can do in the world. But ultimately, it is up to us to make sure that technology continues to strengthen, support democracies around the world in the future to come. Thank you so much for your kind attention today. Over to you again, Shri.
For more interesting content, like, comment, and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.